Good evening, everybody. Happy Tuesday. It is an odd day for us to be on, but we've got some stuff going on tomorrow, so we switched the show to today. And to be honest, I think it's a perfect day to switch to because it's International Women's Day. So we've got a great show for you guys tonight. If you are live with us, please help us share, tag some girlfriends. Today's an important day, and we're going to really be talking about a couple of different things, really. But we are here to also acknowledge and celebrate International Women's Day. So if you're live, let us know where you're watching us from. It'll just be a couple minutes before we get started. As usual, we've got Callie sharing. I'm chit-chatting with you guys while she's doing that, and then we'll get started here. And of course, I'm going to try and share too, because typically when I try to do that, I just share it onto our page, and I can't quite figure out how to figure it out. So maybe you guys can help me out. So I have an Android, and usually like when I'm on Facebook and I try to share all that talk stuff to my personal, it shares it onto all that talks page instead of my personal page, and I can't quite figure out how to like switch it. So I mean, I think I'm pretty technically savvy, but I guess I'm not because I can't figure it out. So if you guys know how to help me out, please DM me or let me know. We've got Chai from Florida. Hi, Chai. Thank you so much for always watching and supporting. We've got Chrissy. Hello, happy International Women's Day from Wausau, Wisconsin. Thank you so much. Hello to you too. We've got Micah from Pennsylvania. Thank you so much for tuning in. Again, if you're live with us, let us know where you're watching us from. We'd love to say hi and do shout outs at the beginning. So it'll just be another minute or two before we get started. Callie's almost done there. All right, Callie, since you're quiet, I'm going to go and try to share onto mine on my laptop instead of on my phone because I want to make sure that I don't hear like two people like talking at the same time. So let's see if this works.
Dun, dun, dun. And if you're on, we love to hear just women that have made an impact in your life. A mom, a sister, you know, coworker, a teacher. I think there's been a lot of women in all of our lives that have, you know, really been there for us all. And so we would love to hear about those women. Were you able to share?
I think so.
Are you doing it from your computer or your?
Yes, that's why I'm like, I hope this works.
Yeah.
Yes, because you know how it is with my phone. I can't really seem to freaking figure it out. So I'm just gonna try to do it on my laptop and hopefully it works. Okay. You done? Maybe?
I think so, yeah. I've been getting blocked, so I'm like not sharing in all of or not blocked, but I've been getting denied in some of the groups, so I'm kind of wary of where I'm sharing to.
You know, I think sometimes like the different social media platforms that we have, like I feel like if there are good enough topics to where we share, unfortunately when you know, the admins like don't approve it or things like that, it kind of hinders the people in that group a little bit, especially when we have really good conversations, you know, like we try to be as educational as we possibly can when we have like our Hmong marriage and like Hmong culture stuff. Like it's always so important to like share that knowledge. And so it's unfortunate, but I hope that, you know, some of those admins do watch our show and that they do open up that platform to allow their followers and their group members to kind of glean in on the conversation too. So
I agree, because our topics does span a lot of different interests, and a lot of members have different interests, and just
yeah,
I think getting to hear different people's viewpoints helps
yeah,
you kind of see and saw like other people's opinion, and help you to just learn and grow.
right, exactly. Well, welcome everybody. Welcome to All That Talk Show. I am your co-host Olivia.
I'm Callie.
I feel like we do this so often. Sometimes we forget to like introduce ourselves lately, So
Yeah.
I've been trying to be better at like saying welcome and introduce, because if this is your first time watching, know that we don't purposely try to like not introduce ourselves. I think we just do it weekly that we sometimes forget. So apologies on my end. But thank you guys so much for tuning in. We have a wonderful show tonight, and we're going to be talking about women and kind of our perspective on a lot of different things. And so we've got two wonderful guests joining us to kind of talk about those topics. So I'll let Callie introduce, and then we can kind of go from there.
Okay, so right before we do that, so there's a question. So Christy, the We Send Stars, is it basically just like a Facebook Pay payment? I believe so. Do you know, Olivia? I believe that that's the case. And if you send stars, they're actually not very expensive, right? I think if you send like, I don't
Yeah.
know, like 50 stars, it's still like, oh, basing, yeah. So, okay.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
lots of stars.
Yeah, literally, I think like 1 star equals like a penny or something like that, honestly. And so I think that you do have to like purchase a set amount of stars. So then you have like a bank account of them, and then you can use it, send it to whoever you want to. But I can say that the stars don't equal up to a whole bunch. It's really, I think like last month, I mean, even though we do a lot of lives, I think our total amount of stars that we got was like $36, So,
No,
yes,
that's
it still helps.
not.
It still does help. It helps us with a lot of stuff. It helps us with our monthly subscription to StreamYard that we use to stream our show on. So it does make a difference. So thank you guys so much for sending stars and being a subscriber, and just really supporting us by the simplest thing of like liking and sharing our content. I mean, that makes a huge difference already. And it means a lot to us. So thank you guys so much for that.
Yes. All right. So we have two guests today. And you've probably seen them elsewhere because they are radio hosts from KBIF in Fresno, California. So this is very, very normal for them to be coming on and talking. So we are super excited to have them on with us tonight.
Hello, Michelle and Chris.
Hi.
How are you ladies doing?
We're good. How about you guys?
It's been a long day for me, honestly. I feel like my workday has been like this morning at 8 o'clock since like 5:30. It's been such an exhausting day. And then tomorrow is another long day. But you know what? Besides that, I am just really happy you both are here. I'm happy that Callie and I are here to even provide a platform for us to like talk about what we're going to talk about today, because it's such an amazing day. I don't think that we even realized that today was International Women's Day until I started seeing people's posts, and I'm like, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
it's like meant to be that our show today is with two strong, beautiful women as well. And so I think it's just the universe saying, hey, everything is in line. It's going in the right direction.
Yeah. I didn't either realize at the beginning of the month, because this whole month is a Women's History Month.
Mm-hmm.
And so I knew that, and then I did see that today is Women's International Day, but when it actually came to today, because I've been up since like 6 a.m, so I like totally forgot until people started posting it too. So I was like, okay, that means I need to do something too.
Yes.
And it's so nice that it's the day too, even though we have like Women History Month. I feel like because it's so long, right? You forget like to kind of celebrate it. So then having just like one day also helps you to like just specifically focus and celebrate it just a little bit more.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
Hi,
So
ladies. My mic was on mute this whole time. I'm like talking. I'm like, my mic is on mute. So hello, everybody.
Hi, Michelle. Welcome to the show.
Yeah.
yeah.
I didn't realize you were talking or like your mouth was moving.
Is your mic working now? Just so that we.
Yeah, it's working. I just
Okay.
realized mute and I forgot to unmute myself. So as I'm like moving my mouth, I'm like, wait, I see my
No.
red. I better take so you guys can hear, so everybody can hear.
This is funny.
That is too funny.
The thing that Chris and I do sometimes, we'll like start to do, and then we're like, wait, why can't we hear ourselves? Oh, we're forgetting a button.
And usually, if you're talking and no one's like acknowledging you, it's usually because someone's muted. And we have multiple people on the screen too. It's a little bit easier when there's like just one other guest and we can kind of see. But then when there's and you're kind of ventriloquist there because I couldn't tell that your mouth was moving as well.
Yeah.
I'm
What
glad.
I was saying, I was like, I didn't even like know that she was talking.
Yeah.
All
We try not to talk over each other. So typically, like, if we see your mouth moving, we'll be like, Michelle, are you talking? You're muted. But if we don't see you, then we'll just continue to babble and talk nonsense. So, all right, Callie, you want to get us started?
Yes, let's get started. Okay, so International Women's Day is a global day celebrating social, economic, cultural, and political achievements of women around the world. The day also marks a call to action for celebrating gender parity. And so, why do you think it's important to observe International Women's Day? And as we're asking these questions too, if you are watching, definitely please answer. We'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, absolutely.
Michelle, do you want to start? Do you want me to start?
Go for it.
Okay. Well, I think it's important because women play a vital role in our lives in general. Literally, we all wouldn't be here without women. And then just the it's the history of it, right? Like we've
I love that.
overcome so much, we've grown so much, and just the position that women are in now, like who would have thought we would be, back then. So I think that's why it's important.
Yeah.
International women, when we think about women has so many, are the way we think. And with different nationality or ethnicity, it plays a huge role. So having it be International Women's Day, it's important because of all of the things that we think about that come into play that becomes the action part. And when we don't recognize that and we leave that in a shed, it really sheds more of the future, of the growth, not just what have happened in the past, but what we are today and how we're going to go with tomorrow and further on. So International Women, to me, I'm glad that there's this day because yes, like Chris said, without women, there's a lot of things that wouldn't have happened, and equality and rights and movements and all of that, and women would be, you know, the the quiet one right now. We would be the ones to be in the silent zone if there weren't women that stood out, that spoke out, and that made a stand for everybody else. So I love that we have this International Day, especially with the fact that there's a Women's Month also. But, it's very important to not just recognize the month, but the international part of it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I couldn't agree more with the both of you. I think it's really just a day that I think it's also an awareness day for us too. It's not just about like celebrating, but an awareness to say there's still so much that we need to do in order to kind of close that gender parity, right? When we talk about like equality and things like that, I still feel like there's still so much that we can do. I think that there still are a lot of what do you call it, like stereotypes or perspective ones that are very different, right, about men and women. And I think it's just a really great day to reserve and like reflect on all the amazing things that we've done, but also to continue to have these discussions about how do we close that gap. So though we are celebrating, it's also a day for us to reflect and have conversation.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely feel like, being and like living in the US too, we also see like, certainly more rights than other countries. And I think that we forget that, right? Like we feel like the problems that we see are the ones that we know here in the US. And I just feel like there's so many other places that we don't even know, what that looks like. And so I feel like it's a good reminder for us not to just look at like the US, but also like around the world, what other like women are suffering because they might have less rights. And I think that like just women in general, like, having a focused day, just because, I mean, it's kind of like sometimes like, like people might question, like, why do we have Martin Luther King's Day, right? Like some of these things are like institutionalized, have been in place for such a long time and still have a long way to go. Like, it's just like, it's been so long, but there's still racism. And the same thing like with women, right? And men. It's like women have been working for so long, but there's still such a disparity between men and women pay. And so having this day and this month just to be reminded of the importance of women and, our impact on the world.
Yeah. So my question then is like, who do you guys feel is responsible for taking action on women issues, right? Like we talk about like equal pay, equality, and all this stuff. Like, who do you feel is responsible for taking action?
I think everybody is, I mean, in terms of like, pay and like, or equal pay and then women's rights and all that stuff. Obviously that's up to like politicians, people who do have the authority to do that. But for everyone to just, to speak up for it, right, or stand for it, anybody can start a movement, I mean, it would be obvious for women to do it, but it's great to have the support of men too, so I think anybody and everyone should, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Ultimately it comes down to legal wise, right? And unfortunately, without that point, actions cannot be taken without going through all those steps and process. But the start of it, anybody can take that action to be the support system, and that's something that I feel like that needs to be that push, is that support system first. Is that when we don't, in general, when we do something and we don't have a support system, it draws us back. But as soon as there's that support system that builds up, then it creates that movement and goes for it. And eventually it can be where it can be established and set to where women have more opportunity, more rights. And that all goes down to just steps going up.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely feel like it is everybody's role, because everybody has a different like women issue, right? Like we all have, there's just there's just so many topics that we can tackle. Not one person can tackle it alone. And I say that because one person may be more passionate about like equal pay, whereas the other one may be more passionate about like women being treated like in the justice system, or like it could be anything, right? And so I just feel like there's just so much that we can look at, because there still isn't a lot of like equality across the board. And so when we talk about responsibility, I feel like I hold myself responsible. I hold all of you responsible. I hold all of our brothers, regardless of what nationality, responsible. Like when you see something that just isn't right, like I want you to feel empowered and supportive enough to speak up against whatever that may be. So
I agree with all of you. I definitely feel like just because like I know like from the corporate world just how like that looks like, right? And like 'cause I used to work in public accounting, and I worked in Georgia, and so it's very what they would call like a boys club right at the top, and all the partners. So I think the year that left and moved up to Washington State, there was a woman who was a senior manager, and she was going to be making, I mean, she'd come in, I think, the year before, but she was like super pretty hardcore, right? She had kids, but just, I mean, she was very business. I think because she also knew that, you know, there was a certain way that she had to be, right? You couldn't complain about like having kids. You can't complain about, you know, like I can't make this meeting because, or I can't travel because of this. That's just kind of how it was. And, you know, I think as a woman trying to move up where there's a lot of men at the top, like you do have to feel like there's certain things that you can't talk about or say, because, you know, and we'll talk about stereotypes in a little bit, but there's certainly things that you can't really complain about, right? Because next time they might say, well, I'm not going to place you on out of state jobs because, you know, you have kids. And I think sometimes that can really, like, you know, hurt like your career progression. But, you know, I think just seeing that and just seeing how hard I feel like women have to work a little bit more. And then, you know, like, men, and again, I'm speaking from what I have experience with, and so I don't know what y'all, you know, like what your perspective is, but I certainly know like golfing is a big thing, right, for you know, like men. And it's one of those sports that, like, if you're a woman, you might not necessarily play it, and so, you know, there's a lot of just camaraderie that happens on the golf course, right? There's a lot of mentoring that happens. And so if you're a woman and you don't get to be invited to play golf, you know, I think you do lose out on some progression and mentorship and, you know, possible consideration, right? And if you're thinking about like public accounting, but then you have like corporations where it's male heavy at the top, that really does, like, you know, like hurt your chances of moving, right? Because then your clients are men also. And I think it's just, yeah, there's just definitely some relationship stuff there that really makes it, you know, hard to progress. And so I definitely feel like, you know, like we really need to have more women at the top. And unfortunately, I think some women do have to, you know, suffer a little bit, because I think, you know, when you're fighting against all those men, you know, just thinking about the senior manager that was at my old workplace, you know, all the stuff that she had to go through, and it's, you know, it's hard.
Callie, do you feel like she had to act a certain way because as a woman, like when you are surrounded by men, like even in their corporate world, like they're still like, what do you call those, like sexual harassment? Nicest way to say it, right? Like it's
Yeah.
happening, and maybe she has to maybe she feels like she has to act a certain way, whether that's being tough or like very firm or like stern with her answers to kind of like help with that situation of like maybe men not doing that to her and seeing her
Yeah.
as an equal partner versus just a woman, you know?
Yeah. I definitely feel like she had to work harder and, you know, like be a little bit more not emotional, you know, so I feel like you almost like have to be even more so than like how you normally are. So she told me this story, and hopefully nobody from the old workplace is listening, but so she told me basically what happened was that um, so she was a senior manager at this point. So senior manager is almost a partner level. And so it was her and a partner. And it's so sad when I hear this story, because that was like my favorite partner too. And so that partner was, of course, you know, a man. And so he had forwarded, they were supposed to go out of town. And so he forwarded his flight to her so that she can book her flight. And of course, his was first class. And so then she replied back and said, you know, do you want me to book first class? And he said, no. And so he's sitting in first class and she's sitting like regular, like, I don't know, was that coach or main or and so and so then when they got, so then of course that was already kind of, you know, because when I think about it, I think if she had been a man, I think he would have said, yeah, go ahead and book first class, you know, but I felt like because she was a woman, because the senior manager is like really high up, like it's like almost partner, like by the time they promote you to senior manager, they're already like, this person is, like we're probably going to promote this person. Otherwise, they would just stay at the manager level. And so anyways, they got to the airport, and of course the client, there was a couple of clients that was on that trip too, and of course they were all in first class, and all those other clients were like, because I want to say she said that there was 3 clients that came with, and so they were all in first class, and she said that they all just sat in the front, and she was the lone woman like sitting in coach, like working. And I think that for her was just, and I just remember like when she was telling me that, like, like I think just remembering, because the disrespect and the embarrassment of knowing that you're a senior manager and like that's how you were treated, and I mean, and to me, I mean, I really looked up to her and just felt like she, and of course now she's a partner there, but just the stuff that she went through, and just me knowing that that would have never happened. It just sucks, and I think that it's stuff like that does push women out, right? Because it's just like, how do you have to deal with that day after day, and you do have to like feel like you have to overcompensate for being a woman.
Yeah. Was that trip paid by the company?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's
But
crazy.
I just think like in general, right? Anyone who's the pioneer for, whatever, right? They are the ones who will struggle the most, but they are stronger, right?
Yeah.
Like resilient, and it's because of them, right?
Yeah. And
others could follow.
Yeah, the first women do always have to struggle, but then that's the only way that they can be at the table and speak up for us women, unless there are men at the table, that will help pull us to. But until there's a woman that says like, maybe the things we're doing are not right, like it takes that woman to like set the path, and it is unfortunately really, really hard to be that first person, but it's needed.
Yeah, but I think there's a happy ending to this, right? Like now she's partner, and I hope that she is standing her ground and really paving the way for other women in that industry or in that organization. And she's pulling them to the table with her, because that's just so important. When you're like the pioneer and you're the first one, I hope that you do look back and say, I've paved the way. Now you guys need to come too. So
Yeah, because I definitely feel like women too, like sometimes we feel like, like there's not enough seat at the table and we have to be the only woman, which I don't think I feel like that's also like institutionalized and like made us think that way, right? Because maybe we feel like they might only give a few seats, but it's like sometimes we just have to create our seat and we just have to freaking pull other women and into the circle.
Yeah. I think it's really important. Like when I meet other like women in a leadership role, where like when I talk to them and they're all about like women in leadership, it's so important to like automatically, like I like want to, like we just connect, right? Where it's like, I want to come to you, like I want to learn from you, like I want to do everything that you're doing, and then I also then want to pass that on to some other people. So I always feel like when you are in a leadership role and you're able to kind of pass that knowledge down, or pull people to have a seat at the table with you, it's always so amazing to see women like that. So and I don't know if it's rare to find women like that, but I don't often find women in leadership where they're like, let me help you, let me mentor you. I always feel like kind of like what you said, Callie, where when I've seen typically like in my career where I've seen like really strong women, I don't know, they're kind of standoffish. They're not really like warm and welcoming for some reason. I've only met a few, and I know that there are so many awesome women in leadership roles, but unfortunately only a few are very like approachable.
Yeah.
I know because they have to have this like strong shield to like be like, I need to stand with the boys and I have to be this way, versus like, I'm here, I'm strong, and I'm a great leader, but I'm still going to mentor other people to get where I am, because I know the struggle of what it took to get here.
Yeah, I was gonna ask that too. Like, do you think they are like that because maybe they've had to put on this strong face and kind of, I guess, act a little bit tougher, to be able to hang with the guys,
Yeah.
and then they're just used to it, of behaving like that, or do you think it's like, oh, I've worked my way here, like figure it out on your own,
Yeah.
like I really don't know, but
I have to say that, like, from my experience, when I went from retail management, so I hated the corporate world. I knew about it. Like, I knew all the, like, the little, the sticks that they have with each other, right? The little glue, the clicks. And it's funny, we think that it goes out from like schools and stuff, but it doesn't. It continues and it goes and so forth. But I had a
Mhm.
really good experience when I was living in Vegas, and I was working at a retail store, and my managers were like, "Hey, do you want to learn this?" And to me, I was like, "Okay, I'm just learning." But I didn't think anything about like going up into management. But what my boss was doing was training me without me realizing. And by the time I got to like a level where she was like, "You want to go into a manager meeting?" And I'm like, "No." She's like, "You're ready for it." I'm like, "No, I'm not. But because she had prepared me without me realizing, when I went to a manager meeting, then I was the top of those who was interviewing for a management position. And at that time, shh, shh, okay, shh, hold on. Um, so when I was going into that uh, role, I had knew so much more than all of the other people that was going into that same position. And when I think back about that, and even to this day, she is still she inspires me, motivates me, and still leads me. And with that, she taught me that if what she knows, she wants to teach others. And for me, when I got into management position, I taught, I trained, I was constantly, I would tell people, if you don't know something, ask the question. I don't care if you ask me 100 times, I will tell you and wait until you understand it, because we all learn things differently. And what I'm saying, you may not understand this way, but if I change it in a different form, you may understand it that way. So for me, with that being my lead, has taught me myself to, when I'm in a higher position, I go back and pull other women to be in strength, to be higher, to know that they're worth more. Because yes, in a corporate world, not just corporate, but in jobs in general, with men that are dominant, you feel like you have to, be something more. You have to be more aggressive to stay in their level. And when I was in management, I saw that. I saw that with certain male managers, that I had to be a little bit more precise and in the way that I spoke, that was straightforward, versus with certain males. And the ones that knew how I work because they've taught and trained me, I didn't have to go as strong. But the ones who were just like already at top and did not take the understanding to say, like, okay, this person has gone through all this, and just immediately thought as, I'm a woman and I can't do anything because I started off at the ground zero as a part time, and here I am. In 2 years, I went from part time to management position in less than 2 years. So I definitely grew up really fast in the
Yeah.
field, and I stayed a manager for a long time. And only after I had my kids, I like demoted myself. But seeing that level of, yes, women, there are some women who will help you, who is up and who will come back down and to pull you up with them. And when you go up, you go back and pull them up with you, and you keep just going like this, up, 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 up. But there are the other women who will just stay like this and see you like this, and
Mhm.
they're gonna go like that, and you're just gonna stay like that. So it goes both ways, but it's sad that we as women have to pick and choose our battle versus we can just support. And men also, that you have to pick, oh, I have to be with this clique to stay where I'm at, versus I know this person can do, and that person can do more than me. And I see that a lot in jobs, and it takes me off a lot, because this is why women can't go up. And this is why women have to perceive and be seen at a different viewpoint of who they aren't, because of how they have to treat be set. They have to set a certain standard level and stuff like that. So I definitely understand the corporate world. I never had to be inside, but seeing on the outside and going from my position up to that to seeing the corporate on top of that, it's that dominant. If you don't stay in that, or if you don't have that mentality like them, they just shut you down, and it
Yeah.
hurts. But you got to be empowered. As women, we have to empower ourselves, to strengthen ourselves, to keep going and push ourselves, because if we don't push ourselves, we're not going to get to the top. And there, where is the top? The top is we keep going and never
Yeah.
settling for less.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, Chris, I think that I do feel like women do feel like they have to overcompensate. And I think a lot of it is like this scarcity mindset that we have to work from, right? We feel like
Mhm.
there's only one seat at the table for women. I mean, that's not true, but we feel that way, right? Because you might walk into a table that has 12 men and you feel like I'm the only, and I have to be like a certain way, and you know, I'm focused on my own fight so much that I can't even put my hand down to reach down. When I was like a senior associate, I specifically chose this woman to be my coach just because she was a woman. And so I felt like she, you know, and I really liked her personality, and felt like she was not like the other men, you know. And so, so then she was my, you know, coach, mentor. And then when I became a manager, because she was a manager, I felt like our relationship kind of changed, you know, which was really sad because I still, for me, like, even though like I was the manager and she was a manager, she's a more senior manager, you know, and I like, you know, I was really looking for our relationship to just be closer and tighter, just because, you know, now we're at the same level, but she's more senior. And I just felt like it was like almost like she felt threatened, you know, which was like just really sad to see, really. But I definitely feel like women, you know, we have to like band together and be together versus like, you know, separating apart and trying to fight the fight alone.
Yeah. So all in all, it is all of our responsibility
Yeah.
to
Help
address
each other.
Yeah.
exactly, to address and take action on women's issues for sure.
Okay. So you know, I think that sometimes if you, oh, you know what? Let's take this question, y'all. I like this
Yeah.
question that oh, sorry guys, this is gonna block your face for a little bit in
I'll
the
just
screen.
read
But
it really fast.
okay. Did you want to read it?
Sure. My St. John says, speaking of pioneer women, how many of us are guilty of not stepping up to the plate for the hard work they paved when we let things that men do slide or give them an excuse for their behaviors? How do we help hold each other accountable and support one another and holding up the standard?
Um, I think that um, even though there may be, you know, pioneer women who, you know, do things, you know, that we can follow, I still think that because that field could be dominated by men, you know, there's still, even though we know it's possible, there's still that little like intimidation, you know, thinking like, could I do it too, you know? Like it's been done, but I think for everybody, especially if it's something that you have to like it's so different, right? It's a risk. So there's obviously going to be some fear even though it's been done before. I think you still have that fear just because there's that male dominance, right?
Yes.
So yeah, sometimes we kind of like let things go, you know, just because it's how it is and we still have that doubt and that fear.
Yeah.
It sucks. I definitely have guilty times. So when I've done this, where I'll let me do quote unquote allowed them, but and when I did do that, I go back and then I take accountability. I'm like, this is your responsibility, not mine. This is on your shift and stuff, you know. But it does take a lot for one person to step up, even though it's we let it go as an excuse. It gives it makes it harder for us in general because we are allowing that, and it makes us guilty for allowing it to happen, knowing that there are these, like, I'm going to keep doing these quote unquote, that men get away with and then women don't. So there's plenty of times, but then those, we should use those thoughts now of like those guilty times to allow us to push forward to say we're not going to allow that anymore. Those behaviors need to change, and if those behaviors are not, they don't need to be there. It becomes of a need and a want. You- are you capable of fulfilling the duties, which is a need duties, or are you just making excuses because you want to not do that and stuff? So
Yeah.
it just comes down to, can we hold them accountable? We can. How do we hold account? We just need to step up and say it. And are we all guilty? Yeah, we're all guilty at some point to allowing it. But
Yeah.
it's just what's going to help us in the long run to help us for tomorrow and so forth.
Yeah. I feel like that the kind of like what you're stating, allowing people, men to like
Uh huh.
slide, while not so much for women. I feel like that happened a lot more to me in my younger days in my career. A, because I didn't have the skills to communicate, right, and be
Hmm.
strong. B, I wasn't in a position where I felt comfortable to say no, because is it insubordination? Is it, like you still don't know, right? You're still very
Hmm.
young and naive. And so I feel like now that I'm in a much more comfortable state in my career where I do have authority, I understand corporate America and communication, organizational change, how to talk to executives versus frontline staff. Now that you understand the dynamics of those relationships, it
Hmm.
is much more easier for me to say no and understand that it's not because I don't want to do it, because it's not within my line of work. Or if you don't want to do it, here are the consequences of the outcome if you, not me, but you don't do what XYZ is, because you are the right person to do it, not
Hmm.
because I'm available. It doesn't matter
Yeah.
if I'm not the right person to do it, I shouldn't be doing that, right? So I think it's just communication skills and learning that. And so I just think that when you're a lot younger, we see that happen so much more often. But I think when you're in a position where you do get the opportunity to learn these things, I think it's much easier to hold ourselves and other people accountable.
Yeah, and I think
Yep.
like women do have to like band together,
Yeah.
because I think when we let men like men's behavior slide, like right, boys will be boys, right, like men will be men. I think that's I think it really does take multiple women to come together. Just like when we had the Me Too movement, right? It was like one woman stepping out and being super embarrassed and being like, "This happened to me," and then other women like all of a sudden it was like all these women
Yeah.
could feel like, wow, like I can now come out and tell my story and my truth. And I feel like that's as women we do need, we see that we do need to stand together, but it is really hard because you don't want to be the one that's like complaining, right? Or like like if you're too outspoken, then now you're like a bitch, right? And so I feel like in the workplace it is so hard because if we complain too much, we're one thing. If we're too, like bossy, like we're automatically classified as something. And so I feel like as women, if we see things that are not right that men are doing, we do need to stick together and speak up. I think it's easier than like doing it all by yourself and feeling like, you're just now complaining.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Agreed.
wanted to say I was thinking of the Me too, because I recently watched the Harvey Weinstein documentary,
Mhm.
Oh
and
yeah.
they had actually been doing it for a long time, and a lot of the first couple ones they like paid off and stuff, and sadly, women did feel like this is just gonna embarrass me. It's gonna make me look bad. I'm not gonna get another job, or we were just too concerned about thinking how it's going to be embarrassing for us because it is a man's world, right? Or at least
Yeah.
back then. So, um, yeah, that's exactly what I
Yeah.
was thinking about too. It does take, everyone to kind of support each other because some of these topics are so sensitive,
Yeah.
and very personal, so you do feel embarrassed, and people judge so much that you do feel like, why if it'll just backfire on me, and make
Mhm.
me look bad instead of him because he's the man, right?
Yeah.
And a powerful man, right? I think
Mm-hmm.
when someone's super powerful, it is kind of scary to go up against that, and because people will make you look bad, and like maybe you asked for it, or like, but did you get a role out of doing whatever, right? And so they try to
Mm-hmm.
definitely twist your word as a woman.
Yeah. I mean, we talk a lot about like women, being there, but I think it's also like men too. I think it's a really good day for even our brothers to reflect and think about, like, that's like your sister and your mom and your niece and your auntie, that are being treated in this way if they are. And so I think just in that nature, regardless of how powerful these people are, like, stand up, like, show up for them, like, they need you. It's not just about like women standing together. It's just about standing up for what's right, regardless of gender, you know?
Definitely. Okay, so as we were talking about this, what do you believe can be done to address gender stereotypes? And so I'm just going to give a couple of examples from early years, during youth, and as adults. So early years, some of the gender stereotypes are that girls should play with dolls and boys should play with trucks. Boys should be directed to like blues and greens, and girls should be geared towards more red and pink. Boys should not wear dresses or other clothes typically associated with girls' clothes. And then during youth, gender stereotypes can be girls are better at reading and boys are better at math. Girls should be well behaved. Boys are expected to act out. Girls should be thin and beautiful to make them appealing to men. And then as adults, examples of gender stereotypes are there is something wrong with a woman who doesn't want children. Assertive women are unfeminine and are bossy bitches or whores. Women are natural nurturers, men are natural leaders. Women don't need equal pay because they are supported by their husbands. Women with children are less devoted to their jobs. Women are too emotional to undertake certain kinds of work, especially while pregnant. And so these are all gender stereotypes that have affected how women are seen in the workplace, or even like how we are directed into different roles, right? Like women going more into nursing versus like being pushed to be doctors. But I mean, of course, if you want to go into nursing and that's truly what you want, but I think that sometimes we do get pushed to certain fields just because we're,
Women.
women. Yeah. So the question was, what do you believe can be done to address gender stereotypes? I went so much into it, and I was like,
You're like, just a couple of examples. For me, I think that in order to address these, or I guess combat these stereotypes, we have to really just teach and um, practice to value everyone. Every individual. Um, we're all different. We all have our own. It's not that, oh, I'm a girl, so I'm this. You're a boy, so you're that. Everybody is essentially born the same, with the same brain. Everybody has the same capabilities. So I think it's just a matter of teaching that each individual is valuable, and they can really just do anything,
Mhm.
I second that. It's just teaching them and not excluding them. When we disable people, our children, and people that we are working with, then it really holds them back to really, I'm going to do this quote, label. Okay, we have a lot of labels, so if we stop with these labels, and again, I second Chris with just teaching them about all of that, then it can, it won't happen now, but eventually, hopefully, I hope that it would eventually change to where it's not just, oh, pink and red and white for girls, blue, green, and white for boys. Boys are only with trucks. No, girls can do that too. Boys want to play dolls. That's great because then it understands. siblings. I think of it when they play with dolls, it's siblings. They understand that, my parent is having another sibling for me and stuff like that. So it's not saying, oh, you're, you know, not a boyish, you're too girly, it's we have to stop that. And that's us teaching and not disabling them when they're little. So
Yeah. I think just kind of addressing from your examples, Callie, I think in your early years, I think society has already played that out for everybody. Like clothes are more pink for girls, and boys it's the darker colors, right? And so I think in order for us to really kind of address that, I think we need to maybe start making some girl clothes um in more of the girlier colors, right? Um even like for boys, you don't see a lot of boy clothes like little boys or that are pink or like purple. It's really just the darker colors. And so I think if we start making all colors and not really separating them, I think that's one way of addressing that stereotype, right? Like we need to start somewhere. And I think that by colors is something that's very simple, that can be doable. People just need to implement that color palette into all of the baby clothes, regardless of what color of the rainbow it lands on. It just needs to be everything, right? Um, During youth years, I feel like we need to just, I don't know, I feel like we just need to focus on our child, regardless if that whether they are a boy or girl, right? Like whether they're really good at reading or math, like you just really focus on their area of strength, what they're really strong at, and like help them enhance that even more. And then where they lack, you just continue to work with them on that, regardless of their gender. I don't know if there's really any other way of approaching that. I know that from my boys and like from my nieces, I do realize that girls learn things a lot quicker, whereas for my boys, they're a little slower at learning different things. So it requires me to be a little bit more patient with them and figure out different ways of how to show them how to show their work so that they understand. Adulthood, oh my god, there's just so much there that we can talk about. We look at like the word assertive. So I have to tell this story because my cousin had a boyfriend and we went on a trip, and we were talking about like Hmong women in our Hmong culture, about like how we are mistreated and all of this stuff. And y'all know I'm very passionate about that. Even though I don't understand a lot about Hmong culture, I know that I have been mistreated and I speak very loudly about that. And so I think to someone like him who's probably used to like his like parents like babying him, or maybe like his past girlfriends just being really passive and not being assertive. And I think when he heard me talk about that and like how passionate I was about how I think we should change the way we treat our Hmong women when we talk about like religion, right? Like, for example, if you're married and then you're divorced, like your parents can't call your spirit back to be a part of their family. Like that to me makes no sense, because fuck, I'm still your damn daughter. Like, how dare you, right? But anyway, besides the point, he was like, you're so assertive. Like, how does your husband even deal with you, right? And of course, my husband was right there. And he was just like, she's fine. Like, I love her the ways, and I'm glad that she's speaking her mind. And there's truth in that, like, and so I think for starts, I think for our Hmong culture, when we talk about that, it's really continuing to educate each other and to have those conversations about, yes, that may have worked. And the reasoning behind that may have been very valid 100 years ago, but not today, not in this neck of the wood, not in this day and age. And continue to like bring those conversation and try to find a solution together, instead of like me bickering, you're bickering, we're just both bickering back and forth of our points, and really not coming together as like being open-minded and trying to listen to each other and find a solution. So I think there's lots to do in the adult world, but for youth and for children, we can start by as simple as color palette and really just focusing on our own child, regardless of gender.
Yeah, and it's funny that, when you're a woman that's outspoken, you're automatically, like too assertive or bossy or a bitch, right? But then when it's you know, they're a leader.
Yeah.
And so
Yes.
the other
Yeah.
thing too, right? Is
Like,
how
you
we
go, man.
describe it. Yeah, like it's how we just like automatically describe things, right? If you complain too much, oh my gosh, like she's just complaining, you know. But a guy, it's like, oh my gosh, he's standing up, like his opinion is valid, you know. I mean, how many times do women sit at the table and say the same thing, and then the man goes and says, you know, something just a little bit different? Everyone's like, oh my gosh, like that, you know, like my mind is blown, you know. And so I think stuff like that, you know, like that is very, it's groomed from very, very little, that we start to see women a certain way and we start to see men, you know, a certain way. And you know, I think when I think about like gender stereotypes, I look at like feminine and masculine energy, right? And I feel like men have that. Men have feminine and masculine energy, and women does too. And I feel like, you know, any organization, any like situation, like you kind of need both, you know. And I think both are very valuable, right? Because we're, you know, like the masculine energy a certain way, like the feminine energy balances it out. And like both are needed at the table, because I think that women sometimes see things a certain way, like a little bit different, and men, you know. And I think that if we can be able to work together, that we can be able to, like, you know, if you're in an organization, right, be able to be successful, instead of saying, you know, like women can't be, you know, leaders because eventually they're going to have kids, which is totally like sexist too, right? Like just like women feeling like, you know, maybe I don't want to push as hard because, you know, in a couple of years I might have kids. But I think sometimes you have to look at the organization and say, you know, maybe we don't have women at the top because we don't have programs that help support that, right? Like I've had, like when I was when I was had my kids, and you know, like having to go to the clients and like pump in the bathroom, you know, like with my breast pump, you know, or in the car. I've had to pump out in the car and like random parking lots. And it's, I think it's, you know, as simple as that, of just like maybe some of these organizations need to like look at their policies and figure out how do we accommodate families, you know, not just like women as mothers, but also men as fathers, right? And looking at paternity leave and maternity leave, and maybe people shouldn't be working until 8 or 10 p.m., you know, and you know, maybe we need to figure out how we accommodate families. I think Oprah was talking about, I think when she was like a younger reporter, she had asked, she figured out that her counterpart, who was a guy, was making more. And so when she went to go ask her boss, they said, well, you know, like, I can't remember what his name was, but you know, such and such, you know, he has a family, he has a house, you know, like, and it's like, that is not even valid, you know, like that they saw that, well, she was a single woman, she doesn't have as much expenses, you know. But it's just like, that's a kind of, you know, like thinking, and those are the things that we do let slide, and then we don't push up against. And it will happen to other women as well. And so I think it's important to like really think about what the stereotypes that we hold, the world holds, and how we start to change that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just to like add on to your, you know, example with Oprah, I think that if they did, you know, see everyone's individual value, you know, then they wouldn't even like, you know, use those excuses like, oh, your expenses are less, you know.
Right.
If she like worked just as hard as he did, or she
Right.
knew just as much and helped the company just as much, you know, if they just saw that versus other things, then it wouldn't have been an issue, you know, in the first place.
And that was probably just an excuse, right? Because not only was she a woman, but she was a Black woman too, right? And so it's just like, oh my goodness, there's so many things that you know, definitely need to be brought up.
Yeah.
Ooh, should we address this question? All right, so Maisie is hitting us with all the good questions. How do we start these crucial conversations with our Hmong brothers? What are some thought-provoking questions we can ask to get our brothers thinking in a situation like Olivia shared?
Girl, when I know, I'll let you know. I feel like I have, you know, I feel like sometimes, like, as women, okay, so I'm gonna like give an example of like how closed-minded I'm only saying this from my own experience. I'm not saying that all Hmong men are like this. Okay. I'm just saying it from like my experience. Okay. And I've had this conversation multiple times with like my older aunties and like my mom and people. So one of my uncles had passed away, and I genuinely was asking my sister-in-law about why do we, as family members, like very close family members, have to pay tall, um, like our older brother or our older cousin brother or whoever, to do certain things for us when they are like our immediate family and they know that we are in dire need of their services, right? And their reasoning for learning these like funeral stuff is because they want to help their family. And so when this person, so I was having this conversation with my sister-in-law, and when this person's wife heard me asking, I don't know what she was thinking. Again, always women hurting each other. It's never us backing each other up, okay? Um, Whatever she did, she took it to her husband and they kind of discussed it, whatever. And then he got angry. And, you know, to me, it was kind of like, but you weren't even a part of the conversation. I was genuinely asking. And so then the conversation that I had with my aunties and my mom is like, you know, I'm going to speak Hmong because it's more right. Like right? Like
Uh-huh.
you like now, right? And and for me it's like if one of my brothers didn't know something and he like married out, right? Like I would I would be the one to educate him instead of like tea and about the gay, he had like had all these things, right? So for me, like I was telling my mom and my aunts, it's like if he cared about his sisters, if he cared about his reputation and his family like they claim they do, what he would have done is educate his sisters on our Hmong culture, why things are the way that they are, and you know, listen to our concerns about why we don't agree or that we don't understand, instead of like saying, if you don't apologize, I'm not going to do it. Then is your, you know what I mean? Then you're really not following what you say you are. Like you don't really care about the family. You care more about your face. You don't care about listening and being like evolving with our culture that we live in America now. You're just really holding on to that like patriarchy mindset that you matter more. So I think to answer your question, Maisie, I'm not really sure how to address that unless the brother you're talking about or our Hmong brothers are genuinely ready to have that conversation. Especially right? Like when they know our culture, they know that they can educate us and then also understand that our Hmong sisters have gone through so much that they are willing to help change that. Like we need them. We can't do it on our own. We really can't. We really need our Hmong brothers at the table having the conversation with us and having our back. You know, it's one thing to understand our culture and really try to like help everybody versus understanding our culture and then just using it for your own benefit because you're a man. So I think it's really that whenever they're ready, honestly, and all it takes is one guy. It really does. All it takes is one person who knows our culture, who is willing to work with us, who's willing to educate and help us have those conversations. And I'm still waiting for that one person. I mean, I think there are a lot of men out there who are ready, who are, but also afraid to start because, again, the women are pioneering a lot of things. They would be the pioneer of this conversation. So,
So I want to add on to that, and I say that too. To Eugene to say, you chilai mu talk all about it. You did both you did on in Bolikia, you did more talking Toshin Bolikiana, and you chilai mu taught the Latia. Like the both Chining, you talk here. And I'm like, for reals, like you already understand the heartache, the depression, the anxiety, and all of that that goes for it. So it
Yeah.
does come back to right there. Yo nu, yo ka ting ning cha, chia there, bunny chi toto, bunny chi boss. It's you need to come together. Be a bitch lo shi gong, shi lo shi tao. Okay na, ye be yin chi mo koi, the be yang ga xia, cho tu na. And that is something that we have to talk about. That she nyang de tu ni, nyang de mong na, mong ching mo cho gen chai, hai dia lo chi to zai ko ge hai dia bunny o tao. Luncheon sa o to hai dia tsning ya dia o tao se. That she ya dia bo hai dia lo ya ealing nu se, lo mo ya mo jong, lo te lo mo lo all bailing cái tí se, lo yin một thải ra là cho một thế đó
Yeah.
là cho chỉ muốn linh đạo để chỉ một thế. And it comes back down to just the individual, the family. You know, I come from a big family, and I hate the fact that, you know, some people always hold the title, well, I'm the oldest, you should come to me first, you should do this, you should do that. And I'm like,
Yeah.
well, if you're the oldest, then you need to set that rule. You need to set that guidance, because right now you can't pick and choose and say, I'm the oldest and I want to do this for someone and I'm not going to do that for you. No, if you're the oldest, you're going to be equal to everyone. You go your pa na, go your pa te tina, je te go sai, ha te go your pa tu tuning the na lo, go chipa, go your pa ko tu mo no, that's go your chipa ko tu mo no. So it
Yeah.
comes to that too. So it does
Yeah.
really come back down to how
Yeah.
we go about it. And I really do, like you said, waiting on hai there, bit your new for your show, for your high te, tai te pa te, like ya, you bear your new, your zhong like your go, zhong like
Mhm.
to call zinji like your low na, hai there. We are the elders, we know everything, we can do. But when you think about it, when it comes to funeral, link to your ojo yes, just ni một tua như tuần bùa nó là sao? Đó là thổ thực ăn lo. Bên nhà ủa. Yes, just ni nhẹ lạnh cái na. Đó là khó. Mua shit to okay, do this, all that, cleaning, all that stuff. Bên nhà.
It's a
So
joint effort.
I would love to
Mhm.
see hay there. Biết cho new, biết cho cái tin ninh cha, lo shi gong, lo shi ta. Cho khỏi thì biết cho một cái shi ta luôn nó. Then we're going to continue to have that disparity also. And we're
Yeah.
going to continue to have that gap constantly. But
Yeah.
if we learn to talk and to, again, educate each other also, and then these roles, there's vital roles that we have for certain things, but ultimately, all these roles have come. It comes in a circle. If you can't come together, then everything is just scattered out. But
Yeah.
if you come together, it works like a piece. It's a piece of art. It's a map that we can follow through. So, my C, when I know too, I'll definitely let you know.
I
Sorry,
mean, you
my
talked about. Oh,
oh,
that's okay.
sorry. No, I had to. I didn't hear a lot of you guys because a lot of what you
Oh.
guys were saying because I had to switch phones and batteries died and I couldn't hear you guys,
Oh no.
so I missed out on a good
That's
conversation.
okay. I was just gonna
Just
add
gonna
like
add like
the
the
crucial
crucial
conversation piece.
conversation piece.
Ooh, I'm
Ooh, I'm
excellent.
excellent.
Um.
Um,
Oh, maybe mute you guys. I was just going to add that the crucial conversation, right? Like in the Mika world, right? Like we know how to start crucial conversations. Like when you say X, it makes me feel Y, right? But I think even like even like in our Hmong culture, we're not used to communicating. So even if we really tried, it's going to be so hard with the older generation. But you know, I do have hope. I'm not saying that it's not possible because I listen to Ninja Thing a lot. And I have heard stories of like where, you know, the daughters do go married off and and the dad does not care. He still's like hunupli and do all this stuff because at the end of the day, it's his daughter. He loves her. Regardless if you know of the gender. And so I do have hope. I do think that there are some good Hmong men, Hmong fathers out there that regardless of what our cultural religion practices are, they know that there's a way around it. There always is. And sometimes the reasoning behind it just doesn't make any sense to do that to your child. And so I do have hope. And I know that there are good Hmong fathers out there. There are good Hmong brothers out there who sees all of these doings that will hopefully one day be brave enough to stand up, say no more, and pull a bunch of people together and have that conversation to make those changes. And I think that it will happen. It's just maybe not today, but it will. I'm hopeful.
For me, I want to just address it. So I think that yeah, because it is hard for a lot of Hmong, I guess, in general, but men to like communicate too, right? Because of course, because our roles, right? So they're
Ego,
not, huh?
ego.
Oh, yeah. So they're not as, open to like have conversations, especially with their wives, right? And again, of course, there are, good Hmong men out there, like good husbands who are willing to, compromise and listen and all that stuff. But I honestly think that maybe it's a conversation that can be had once we take action first. So say, if you're just not, say if you're a wife and you're just not being appreciated, or your husband's just shrugging you off and say it's just unfair to you, right? And they won't even listen, relatives won't listen, then at that point you really, for your peace and your sanity, you have to then take action, right? And
Yeah.
maybe all it does take is that, you know what, I'm gonna get a divorce, I can't do this anymore. And you never know, right? That D word is, big to a lot of people, so sorry, I didn't mean to say it like that.
That D word.
But I mean, okay, I'm not gonna follow up. But anyways, but I think that we just have to take actions because especially our culture, like we do believe that, the men, takes the leadership role, right? But even so, that I see, even though now that some Hmong women, or a lot of Hmong women, they're getting better education, higher education. I've even known of, some that then are the breadwinners, and they're more commonly now stay-at-home dads, right? I've even heard of the dads getting allowances, right? From their wives. But then yet it still confuses me then, why, or how does he still have this authority then, when you pretty much have taken his role, right? You guys have literally switched roles, but yet we still give the Hmong men by default this leadership alpha
Girl, don't
role.
like we can't
We
marry
can marry
Hottie,
Auntie,
yo,
we can now. Yes. you know so I just feel like when it comes to things like that, sometimes, even though yes, there's still um a lot more criticism among women, even if they choose to leave, or for themselves. It just takes, us actually just doing it, right, taking the action. And then if it happens so much, which, these trends that have, or these roles, you know Hmong men are catching on. You know, they are seeing it. They're seeing the change. So I think it's just a matter of actually like taking action for yourself, and then they'll listen. You know, before it happens to them, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I
So
think
that's what I think, Maisie.
yeah. I feel
I
like
feel like
no,
no, echo.
I'm gonna mute. Okay, am I echoing? I'm not echoing. Okay. I was just gonna say that not every Hmong brother is ready for that conversation, right? And I feel like I personally, like, I don't try to argue with the any Hmong brothers that are not ready to, right? Because they're just never gonna see. I mean, it's like talking to someone who's racist. Like, if they're outrightly racist, the more you argue with them, they're never going to come around, right? And so I feel like it's finding allies, like Hmong brothers who are allies already, right? And hoping that they will also help make the stand, and then just being still being assertive about it. I don't want to say Hmong brothers because now I have 7 brothers, and I hope they don't think I feel some kind of way about them, because I've always felt super supported with my brothers, with my blood brothers. But yeah, I just feel like it's one of those things. And I think sometimes the Hmong brothers, until they have daughters too, right? Like until it's their own daughters. And so I mean, I just think finding allies, and because you can't change everyone's mind. And of course, this isn't just an issue in our Hmong culture, it's an issue everywhere, right? As we're talking about just gender disparity and stuff like that. There's certain things and like the American culture that has its problems too. But when it comes to Hmong stuff, I feel like you find those that will stand up for you, whether that's like your father, or if you have an uncle, or you have a brother or a cousin, and you hope that they'll stand up for you when you're not there. And again, and you might be called certain things, right? Because if you complain too much, people are really, really quick to say, but I think it's just making sure that you stand up for yourself as well. Any thoughts? I know we've been talking about men, and I don't kind of want to shift it back to women, since today is International Women's Day.
Like, there they go complaining.
I know.
I
Go ahead, Michelle.
my hair echo. Hold on. Okay. Echo? No echo. So, go right into the women, right? And as we talked about men a little bit and back into the women, this is where women comes in. This is where that progression, this is where that start, that standpoint, why women started doing more things, why the action started. And that's where women have come where they come, because they have gone through this and they said, we need changes. And continuing, women today are still going, and women will keep making changes. And it's a matter of having that support. Are we as women going to stand there to help each other? Or are we going to battle and not have that support? Because if we can't support each other, then others will not support us. I support you all. Callie, Olivia, Chris, if I'm going somewhere and I see that this is great, I will come back and tell you guys, hey, ladies, this is good. If you haven't already experienced this, try this. Let's do this. Let's experience this. Let's go this. Let's help us. And this is how we're going to help each other to continuously to grow. And that's where we need to come in to help. And as I'm reading things, these comments as I'm like talking and stuff, and he's like, he has 7 sisters, he's the only brother, and I'm like, and I'm glad. I'm really glad that you love your sisters and you support them, and that you're willing to have that conversations and to be there for them, because they're and Plur also said younger Hmong men are more open-minded and adapting to equality now. Yes, there are more adaptation to help women, and that is the going to be the support for women, for equality, for strength, for growth, and more women to stand up. So
all right. So we've had awesome conversations about that. So Maisie, hopefully we gave you enough answers. And ultimately we don't know, but when we do, we'll let you know. I think we just have to continue to try and fail until we're successful. Right. So I think we're going to skip over a lot of the questions that Callie and I had, but I do want to ask this last question to close it out, since we are like way beyond our time. But who are some women that have helped shape who you are today? Who are some of those women role models growing up for you?
Oh, you want me to go first? I think it might be my phone that's causing the echoing, but I'm not sure. um, for me, you know what? To be honest, I haven't had too many like strong female role models growing up. The only person I had was really my mom. Um, and so from her, I think that's why I'm like a lot like her. But she's just her work ethic. I've experienced that because she raised 9 of us pretty much as a single mom because my dad, like, he's kind of absent, right? um, so, and he was pretty much like another child too. So she raised 10 of us, and like even nowadays I think about and wonder like how did she support all of us just working a minimum wage job, and like we didn't have, lots of things, but we had more than, maybe some of the some other like Hmong people, so um yeah, so she would only be like my only role model, and just seeing like how she loves us, like that taught me to how to be a mother, to my nieces and my nephews. So she would be the only role model really for me growing up.
So for me, I had quite a bit of different role models, women, different women from, like, yeah, our children, they just pop in and out, right? So, from elementary, I can think back to teachers who I still connect with even now, to church members, to working. And so as I've continued to grow, I've had more people come into my life and continue just to help, not mold me, but teach me, to be my mentor. And going back to school, to and you guys, I struggle with school academically. I struggle so bad, but there are some teachers who are there who totally understands you, and they work with you. And from family members to complete strangers, I've had a wide range of different women, different role models who are there, and people that I never thought would be there. And even, you guys, I would say, you guys are the newest ones, are the strength. So I can't pick one, because a lot of different perspective has opened my eyes to who I am now, to be able to share openly and sh- um, um, and use that, because role models, little parts of them, uh, is what we pick at to hold us to grow. So those were, I have too many role models, but I will say, like,
Michelle, you're frozen. Okay, so while she's frozen and she'll come back, I'll just quickly share that I think growing up, kind of like Chris, I really only had my mom. She was a single. I would like to say that she's a single woman because it's seen as she is, even though she was married. Um, to my stepdad. And so I think just like seeing her, like, like how strong she was and her awesome work ethic, just so then we would survive. And kind of like what Chris said, we didn't have a lot, but we had enough, right? And I think, Callie, you may be experiencing the same thing too, where we don't have a lot of money, so my mom just kind of gave us whatever clothes. The color didn't matter. We could be in boys' clothes, hand-me-downs, right? So I think the gender thing of how we resolve that is exactly like how my mom did it growing up. Don't care, just put it on its clothes. And so I think for me, it was really her growing up. And then I think during like my like grade school to like middle school, I had this one auntie, and she didn't really know, she doesn't know, I don't think that she still does, that I really looked up to her growing up, because she didn't follow the footsteps of your typical, like, the Hmong girls back in the day. She went to school, got an education, became a nurse. And I think, to me, I looked up a lot to that, because she was someone that right, like she was a little older. I mean, she was probably like 19, 20, not married, so she's considered like, old, but she's not, she just really wanted to pursue her education and become something that she was really passionate about. And I applaud her for that. And I really looked up to her for that, even at a young age. Like, I knew that she wasn't your normal, like, Hmong girl. Like, she was in it for herself. And I was really proud of her for that. And I really looked up to that for her. So it was more of like just in awe of who she was as a person and her ability to do a lot of things. But besides that, like, I think growing up, I didn't really have much to look up to. And again, Callie and I, we've had this conversation about like mentorship and role models in our previous shows that we've had before, where like, had I known what I know now, then I probably would be in a much better place. So I feel like I'm a little bit behind. But nonetheless, I think that's why we try to give as much as we can, and we network as much as we can, so then we can network for ourselves and the people behind us. And so I think for me, it's really just have been my mom and that auntie for me. Callie, how about you?
Michelle, do you want to finish your thoughts since you got frozen?
I know. So my phone died. My hotspot went out. My little one was just like, "Mom, your phone died." I'm like, "Oh my gosh, turn on my other hotspot." So, girlfriend, you gotta scoot over. No, don't come right here. Um. So yeah, like as I was just saying, I just had too many to specifically identify one, because a little of everybody has been that role model for me, and where I can go back and I can still connect with them and touch base with them and grow from that. And then each one that I meet onward, they add onto a new role for me to allow me to keep growing. So just like you, Olivia, and Chris, like those very specific ones, but then additional, because when we meet new people, they add into what we already know to help us. So Olivia, you're not late, because if you feel like you're late, I must be late too. But yes, those are just role models, for
Yeah.
me.
Yeah, I would say for me, so I have Nialon Yao, and I grew up with both of them in my life. We all lived in one house together, so that was interesting. But I have 7 brothers, and so I'm really actually grateful to have like 2 moms, very different personalities. But I would say that those were, 2 women that really were there as examples for me, and maybe not like yeah, I mean, career wise, just knowing that how hardworking that they were just to be able to provide, for our whole family. But also the things that they were able to set aside, push aside, and like be able to cooperate as a family together, right? The fact that we can all live together in a household together, I think showed me like their strength and just the things that they were able to like put up with, because I think that that's a very hard for women to deal with being in that situation. And so, and just having that feminine energy, especially with all of that masculine energy. And then also my aunts, like on my mom's side, like my grandma, so my grandpa from my mom's side, he passed away when they were little. And so my grandma never remarried, right? And so I think just the strength that she showed to never, marry. And then, I have a lot of strong aunts too from that side. And then from my dad's side, I mean, all the aunts, they were very blunt, they taught me a lot. Like I always tell people, like when you're there, like channel your aunts, because they have a lot of balls, right? Like they teach you like sometimes a little bit too abrasively. But I think just like they're out, and I think it's because of them growing up in in our culture too, right? Like they have to be like very thug, just very strong, very opinionated, very like these are the things I have to do, and they do have that like ooh, a lot, which I think like in my career I have had to like ooh a lot of things too. And so I think when I think about just how they are and how they were raised up, and sometimes being able to just like compartmentalized, right? Because there's a lot of things that I think the women in that time can't change, and so they have to be able to focus on the things that they can change, whether that's like focusing on their kids, right, and raising their kids versus like dealing with all of that other stuff that can really bring them down. And I just again still applaud like my mom's generation and all the things that they have been able to put up with, and I see that a lot in how my mom like motivates me now, and the things that she says to me is all the things that she's learned and all the things that she's seen her mom dealt with and her sisters dealt with. And even though I think maybe sometimes society might look at like just because my mom doesn't have an education, and she'll say that to me, right? Like I'm stupid. I don't have the education. You have the education. But I think for me, it's just like knowing all the things that my mom have been through, both my moms have been through, and my aunts, and all the things that they've dealt with, and just how they have paved that way for me, even though they might not feel like they've been able to pave that way. It's just like the strength and the courage that they have been able to put up with, and all the things that our women ancestors have been able to do. It's like they don't realize it, but that all those courage that they've shown have really pushed us. So
Yeah, I love it.
all right. Well, anything else to add before I end this for us? We are an hour and 30 minutes in.
I know. I think this is the longest we've gone, but I think it's okay. Today it's really about celebrating women. So I've enjoyed this conversation and just kind of discussing how to break barriers, how do we move forward, how do we encourage, support, and love each other. So just thank you everybody for tuning in, and we'll be back next week.
Michelle, Chris, do you have any last words?
No, I just want to thank you guys for having us on the show. I love that all four of us can like chit chat on this special day, And yeah, I really enjoyed like all of the comments, the questions, and for us to just be able to talk more on and discuss how we can evolve even more.
Yeah, just thank you everybody for tuning in and just being able to just hear us out, because these are topics that are not spoken about, and topics that we need to continue to discuss about. And as Chris and I, we share all the time, like on show, it's like, let us know what you guys want us to talk about, because we want to have this open discussion. But it's if it's not shared with us, then we kind of just do have this open discussion. But yes, thank you everybody for tuning in. I love talking with the three of you guys. It's amazing. Yes, an hour 30 minutes. It's probably like not even long enough. We probably can even keep talking and stuff, but we know we gotta keep end it somehow, some way. But everybody just take care and have a good night.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. I'm sure that there's 4 women on the screen, and I think anytime we talk about Hmong men, I think that very, very threatened. And I think I just want to add that, just because Hmong women speak up does not mean that we are trying to make men go down or trying to assert and overpower men, right? It's just really just speaking up and saying we want to be heard too. And so, of course, today, as a reminder, is International Women's Day. It's a day celebrating social, economic, cultural, and political achievements of women. And we were able to just talk about the importance of today, and whose responsibility it is on these issues, which we all agree is pretty much everyone. And the stereotypes that the gender stereotypes that continue to plague our society, whether that's here in the US or around the world. And so, of course, we hope that you were able to just think about some things that we said. And I think if there's anything that you disagree with, to question those, and to definitely question us too. I mean, I think that, anytime anyone talks about something, it's really, thinking about what they're saying and deciding what parts you want to take and what parts you want to discard. And so, we really enjoyed tonight. And again, we hope that you'll join us next week, but we will see you all next time. Have a good night.